It's the year of our Lord 2K plus 25 with magic digital cameras that can take photos any way you want. So why would anybody shoot film in this modern era? A trend I've noticed recently is that people are finally realizing that paying for streaming services that can choose the version of the content they can watch or modify said content because it's offensive or other BS, even sometimes nuking it outright due to rights squabbles or other reasons, tends to be a bad thing. So because of this, I've noticed people talking about moving back to physical media. The joke's on you, chucklefucks, because I never left physical media. But when it comes to physical media, film is the ultimate physical media. An actual physical copy of your images, independent of hard drives, SSDs, cloud storage providers' terms and pricings, or even the technical standards for encoding an image digitally, let alone the crazy technical standard for just operating the hard drive to get data from it in the first place. But with film, you can look at the actual image with your own eyes, and particularly with colour reversal film being awesome to look at because it's a positive image and not a weird negative. And that is a major reason why shooting film is so nice. It gives you a direct physical copy of your image that is immune to hard drive crashes or data loss. This property of film is actually important enough to me that I have actually been looking into using some of Kodak's intermediate cine process films to make physical copies of my digital photos, because even with a well thought out high quality RAID and storage servers and cloud storage, it's possible to lose data in 1,000 different ways. Assuming you store your film well and keep it safe, it won't be saved if your house burns down, but that's why you also keep a second copy somewhere else. But having that physical copy is a really nice fallback, should the worst happen. Another reason to shoot film over digital is that it is a limiting, slower process. With a modern digital camera, you can shoot in practically any conditions easily with no limits. Blasting 1,000 shots cost me nothing on the Z8. But as freeing as this is, it can paralyze you, and you end up taking every variant of a crap photo because you can, instead of kind of working the scene to find a good composition and then just taking one good photo. With digital, you tend to end up with a lot of crap. But in fairness, this seems to be a skill issue with me. But I found that digital encourages me to shoot the first comp that I see because it's free to do so, and then I'll work the scene later. But it's always kind of half-hearted because I already have a shot. While with film, I really do tend to look for alternatives a lot more and then take the best comp of the lot by visiting the locations multiple times with a film camera rather than doing it with a digital camera. This effect is magnified a lot if I'm shooting medium format or, God forbid, large format, where the processing costs grind me down to a halt. So the cost of film, particularly in recent years, is also a limiting factor. You can't just blast at 800 FPS and hope one photo is good like a lot of digital shooters seem to think is a good idea. You know what, I'm actually going to go on a bit of a tangent here. Why is FPS considered a spec to pay attention to? I know why the manufacturers push it. It's an easy number to sell. 12 is bigger than 9. So don't you want 12 instead of 9? But this frustrates me as I have never shot faster than 5 FPS on any camera. I've never needed to. Even photographing like wildlife in Africa or birds in flight, I've just not needed those extreme FPSs. I've shot motorsports on the F3. I pre-focus on the racing line where the bikes are coming with a preset comp and exposure so that when the bike hits the right spot, I just do one click and it's done. I've done it for trains and other moving things with a 4x5 camera. And I found that it's better to do just one well-planned shot instead of blasting the shutter. This frames per second madness really came to me when I was watching lions lounging just after sunrise in Kenya. Anytime, a lioness went to stand up or one of the cubs even twitched, this guy was going ham with the shutter on the DSLR. And you could hear it from quite a good distance away. It was rather funny to listen to. Another instance of this madness was when we were watching a sleeping leopard. Now my driver Simon is smart, like you read about. And he got me into a spot where the leopard would come after walking up and getting a drink down by the river. And sure enough, he was spot on, which allowed me to get this shot. But what made this funny was all the other photographers panicking and driving around to try and get into a better spot once the leopard woke up. There was this guy with what must have been 50 grand's worth of Sony cameras and lenses who was struggling to grab all the cameras and lenses and swap the lenses for the shot, and he was panicking. Meanwhile, I just took 5 shots on the Z8 and 2 on the F6, resulting in these photos. Also, I am 90% sure that guy had a pre-production Sony A9 III because I saw photos very, very similar to mine in the promotion material, which were apparently taken while I was in the Masai Mara. So, kind of interesting that there's a guy going around with a pre-production camera while I was there. Moral of the story, it's always better to have a plan and a pre-visualization and know what the subject is and what it's going to do when you're trying to take a picture of it. I found that the slow pace and limits of film forces you to learn this skill because it's the only way to get the shot. The limits of film can also force you to shoot differently in different situations. So here, when I was in Hiroshima, I wanted to shoot the Torii Gate at Itsukushima at night on Bellevue. However, the sun was going down and I didn't have a fast enough film to take the handheld shot that I wanted. So instead I ended up making the Torii Gate a silhouette, and I think the shot actually turned out a lot better. It also hides all the construction scaffolding that was going on at the time to the left of the gate in shadow. This shot, for example, I didn't have the shutter speed needed to freeze the taxi, so I ended up trying a motion shot instead, and I think it actually came out quite well. So for both of these shots, if I had have had a digital camera with me, I would have taken the pictures the initial way I wanted to take them, and it would have probably came out kind of boring. But instead, because of the limits of film, it sort of pigeonholed me creatively to take the shots in a more interesting way to get around those limits, and I think the shots are better off for it. Also, when it comes to shooting film, the film cameras are very varied compared to the digital slop cameras that we have now. With film cameras, you can choose between everything from practically digital film cameras to fully manual SLRs, rangefinders, to medium format cameras in dozens of shapes and sizes, and even up to large format view cameras with the ultimate control over your photo. And I have learned more about photography and different techniques from using film cameras than I ever could have hoped to have learned from just digital cameras. The limits of film force us to learn alternate approaches, which can then be later applied easily to digital. A really big example of this for me was learning how to use a view camera with all of its movements and having the ultimate control over your focus and perspective. And I loved this so much it led to me buying a tilt shift lens so I could have that control over my digital photos, and all of this led me to being able to take this shot in Tokyo, which I'm actually super happy with using a tilt shift lens. With film, you can shoot formats that digital can only dream of for a long ass time. Only now are we getting affordable, medium format cameras with the Fuji GFX series. But even those pale in comparison to the sensor size of the smallest medium format of 645. Now when you step up to larger film formats, because you will, the prophecy must be fulfilled after all. So when you start stepping up to medium format and getting into things like 6:7 or 4:5 or God forbid 8:10 formats, the quality goes up. And so does the difficulty and cost. Now the reason I'm bringing up different film formats is because each format renders the image in a slightly different way. You know, things like the depth of field and the focal length versus the field of view, all these change a little bit from one format to the other. And this variation is actually really nice to be able to work with. You also have different aspect ratios you can choose and different ways of composing images on different formats. There's a reason why the term, the medium format look, is a thing. And this of course contrasts to the very limited options in digital cameras where you basically have a choice between Micro Four Thirds, APS-C, full frame, or fuller frame, which is what Fuji actually calls it, or digital medium format. But because you only have a handful of sizes, and to be honest, relative to film, they're all quite small sensor sizes. All the images do tend to look the same. You know, you're not going to get the look of a 4x5 portrait shot on a long focal length lens on a digital full frame camera. You know, you can use all the crop factor equivalents you like, but you're just not going to get the same look. Lastly, another thing that has been happening in the world of digital photography very recently is the encroachment of machine learning transformer models into image processing. I refuse to use the term AI because it is marketing bollocks. Now, digital images have always been processed to some extent to get an image out. You know, even the debayering process, which is the most basic thing, is some pretty extreme processing to get a full color image from the small amount of information captured due to the Bayer filter. This does not mean that film is not processed. You know, how the film responds to light, how it's color balanced, how the film is processed afterwards. You know, all these things can affect the final image. And that's not even getting into things like scanning in the process there. So it's not to say that film is unprocessed, it's more to say that film is a fixed process. Does that make sense? But now I think the digital processing is starting to turn into something quite different, because for the first time we are starting to see machine learning get involved really heavily in image processing directly. Now, machine learning can be an amazing thing. You know, the real-time eye and subject detection in modern mirrorless cameras is machine learning powered, using image segmentation through a feed directly from the sensor. You know, machine learning usage like this is super useful. I actually use it a lot in my video production for the creation of subtitles. I use the subtitle generator and Resolve, and then I go through and correct the output so I still have full control over it. Now, the issue is when these models are integrated in a way that can't be controlled or removed from the digital workflow. And I can foresee a near future where the raw image you get from the camera is not raw anymore, but will be an AI enhanced image to remove noise and clean up the image in other ways. And this is in contrast to the ways that we're using a lot of these machine learning systems in post-processing, where it's a choice to use it. So you might use it to generate part of an image that was missing, or to remove people from an image, or to auto-detect subjects and faces. And these are all fine because this is a choice you make in post. But I genuinely see a future coming very, very soon where this AI will be built into the camera in a way that it can't be removed. And no matter what you do, it will be baked into those digital files the camera will write to your SD card. Like, it is 100% going to come to the JPEG processing in cameras. Like, that's not even a question. But when people start seeing, you know, oh, the JPEG is like so much cleaner and so much better, why can't the RAW file be like that? And then manufacturers will put it in the RAWs and we'll be stuck with it forever. This kind of processing has already infected smartphones to the point where the images they're producing are now unusable trash, in my opinion. And the best example of these machine learning systems absolutely screwing photos over is probably Samsung's moon detail enhancement. Seriously, there's some great YouTube videos on the subject, you need to look them up. It's actually really quite funny how badly they got it wrong. But when it comes to film, it is immune to this kind of processing, and it's an intentional choice to have the image taken a certain way using a certain stock. And this means that the physical film negative will always be a better source of truth over the digital RAW file. So I hope that with this video I've given you some reasons why shooting film can be a good idea. Now, you might have noticed that I didn't mention quality or the film look, and for me that's kind of irrelevant. You know, for me the fun of shooting film is the processing and creating a physical image over just working solely with digital files on a computer. You know, I do enough of that in my day-to-day as a programmer. I don't need my hobby to be stuck in the digital world as well. Actually, I'm going to shut down my computer very quickly. She's got very loud recently. I don't know what the hell's going on. Medium format. Love it.